Dragons. Send me in your big dragons and legal ones as well. Please don't just send me in like 20,000 noise. Does that feel count as a dragon? That's a pretty good one. No, it doesn't. Where are all the chickens? They basically got eaten. Not gonna sell my unbuilt Murren since I want to save my unit review pity rate. That's a good one. I like that. This is one thing that adult Tiki can't do that young Tiki can, which is go for a speed build, and that's what makes young Tiki really unique here. The speed refinement on Lightning Breath, Fury 3, and Speed Seal all contribute to the extra speed, and of course she's probably plus speed. And what's cool about this is the fact that she has defense and resistance. Either way, this is something that adult Tiki can't do. Noe can do this build similarly, but this is really unique to her. Also, she has actual good resistance, unlike adult Tiki. Her difference is, of course, she's not as bulky in the defense stat or the attack stat. And this is a pretty cool build for that reason as well. Fury Vantage, that's pretty normal with Lightning Breath. Overall, a really cool build. I'm glad I started with this. I like it a lot. We can compare it to one more young Tiki as well. If you look at Asura, pretty much the same thing, actually. So what you want to do to complete this build is just a Speed Seal, and you're good to go. Ideally, you can find a plus speed young Tiki, maybe minus HP, and that seems to work really well. You don't really want to sacrifice her resistance because it's not really like she has good resistance. You don't want to like tank it, so I feel like HP's the better dump here. Same build as Sura, definitely what I would consider like her niche, right? Something that she accomplishes that others don't. Moyini here, I'd recommend the same exact two builds that we saw with young Tiki. She can pull off the same build that adult Tiki does, which is the Steady Breath Aether thing with Lightning Breath. But one thing that I haven't seen is, and this would be a lot of commitment to it, is going to be Warding Breath actually instead of Steady Breath, because she has actual good resistance. So you could make her into like a true magic wall that way with Warding Breath. And this is her role as a red dragon that adult Tiki can't do. You can make her a resistance wall with Warding Breath, Lightning Breath, Aether, and such. And yeah, it's something she could do. Of course, the speed build that we saw was definitely pretty good. Okay, so that'll be my young Tiki compares and contrast. Let's look at something else. Actually, I want to see chickens. Where's some chickens? Magic wall to stop who? Reinhardt? Believe it or not, T-Nex, young Tiki with Warding Breath can actually survive a Reinhardt. Not even kidding. I fought one myself where I used my Reinhardt with Honed Cavalry buffs, couldn't kill a young Tiki. On a defense tile, mind you, but nonetheless, like if I didn't have Honed Cavalry and she was off a defense tile, she would also survive. So she has that ability to do so. TY Can says, don't roast me, need TA3 fodder. Don't worry, I understand. You don't need to have complete builds. Yeah, I mean, you're doing what you wanted to do, and I see that niche. I don't agree with Glimmer though. I think it should be Moonbow, just because her attack stat's way too low to scale off Glimmer. Glimmer works better with higher attack units, so this is like blade users or just high attack units in general, and this Fae build unfortunately doesn't really have high attack, so my suggestion is just to change it to Moonbow if you can. You could also use like Iceberg. So yeah, you do what you wanted to do, which is Bowbreaker, Deflect Missile. This stops the Brave Bow users, and Bowbreaker lets her in her niche counter those bow users, and I think that's fine. You explain that you just don't have TA3, and that's okay. You could also try using Fury 3 in the A slot, and that would also work here. Gives you more bulk, gives you more resistance, gives you more attack, gives you more speed. All stats are useful for Fae. I mean, obviously the grand build is like Steady Breath Aether, but again, that's not really that affordable. You could try maybe with Warding Breath on Legendary Ike, but I don't think he's worth killing for that. So we can compare it to another chicken. There it is. Saratu. It's a naked Fae. There's a lot of ways to build Fae, and it's pretty similar to some Noes you're gonna find. Some adult Tiki builds, they all pretty much run similar builds. The staple meta build is basically Lightning Breath, Aether, Steady Breath, Warding Breath, B-Slot being like Quick Work Post, and you could have like this in defense or close defense here, depending on what you want to go for. It's not the only build you can do though. Definitely seen other types of things like Dark Breaths. I've seen Dark Breaths with Distant Counter, Light Breath, Distant Counter. Like there's different choices you can do. You don't necessarily need to run the Steady Breath build. It's just the most consistent build. Minus Speed is a pretty good IV on Fae, if you run that build that I'm talking about. Sarada says I have a Mur already, so think about doing a Speed Fae. Yeah, you could do that as well. The same build that we saw the young Tikis earlier showcasing, which was plus speed, Speed Seal, Fury 3. and Lightning Breath speed refined. Those are all. That's also a build that FEH can run. It's a build that Myr can't accomplish because of her low base speed. Thanks, Saratu. Okay, so we're looking at Myr. This is probably one of her best sets. Distant counter, quick riposte. Although I don't think you should run Moonbow here. Well, I see what you're trying to accomplish. Like, if you're running Moonbow, that's more consistent specials. But again, like, she doesn't have bad attack stat. She has a pretty good attack stat. You can actually run, like, Bonfire here. And just charge it up for player phase. And I don't think there's that much risk involved. Ignace seems overkill. I just think Bonfire is more consistent. I like Bonfire Quick Impulse here, just because you can get that off on turn 1 if you miss some kills. We can compare that to somebody else. Well, there's Dalsmer. She comes with Fury 3 on her base kit, so it's not like the worst choice. It's not the greatest choice either, though, just because she doesn't really benefit from the speed very much. And what I'm saying is, with Myr, Fury sometimes ends up being more detrimental than beneficial, because she can have situations where she takes absolutely 0 damage because of her high defensive stats. You know, especially against like a blue unit, right? A blue unit could just ting, and Fury damage is so much residual damage that she doesn't want to afford to take. So that's why I think that Fury is usually not a great idea here. And ideally you change it. Maybe even like Fortress Defense might be more budget and more efficient here. Because Fortress Defense gives you more defense and lets you reduce the amount of units that double you, which is kind of good. The attack doesn't hurt you that much. I mean, 55 to 52 isn't the worst, especially if you run Quick Riposte. I think you should actually run Quick Riposte on the B slot rather than Vantage. The seal opens up like close defenses and distant defenses and such. But yeah, that's what I would do. We'll compare to one more Scythian. Yeah, so kind of similar actually. Reciprocal Aid. Interesting choice. I guess it could work to heal her back into or keep her in Vantage range. Okay, this is an interesting choice. Yeah, I think this is interesting. I guess you could heal back into Quick Riposte range, and then maybe you could also play with your, like, if your special's charged, like Bonfire, you could also Reciprocal Aid into a Vantage range for an instant Bonfire. I like the idea behind this. It's not necessarily bad. Threat and Defense on the C slot's kind of interesting, but what? Against melee, it does nothing. I guess it works against range units, but how do you actually proc this on a range unit? A range unit is likely to attack Myr. If a range unit parks outside of Threat and Defense's range, like, it hasn't hit that range unit. This could work against melee units that are parked 2 spaces away, but this is totally impractical against a range unit. So, Raykaru says Threat and Defense for Grey Flame. Oh, okay, I see what it's doing. Okay, because this is minus defense, I guess you're threat and defensing a melee unit, but not increasing your damage on Great Flame. Yeah, I would personally just have someone else on the team running Defense Ploy instead. Have an ally that runs Defense Ploy with high res, and you can accomplish the same result as this, and retain some powerful buffs that you could give other units, like Hone Dragons or Hone Flyers if she's on a Flyer team, or Tactics buffs if she's on a mixed team and such. Like, there's just... This is very impractical. JSF says, well, your Lucas has threat and res. Yes, he does. But that is literally because the whole team comp is based around Merrick. So it's not like I guess this could work if maybe Myr is like on a Bridal Cordelia team and Bridal Cordelia is carrying or something. That's what I think. All right, well, let's look at some edgy males. That's not too bad. It's a good, like crazy good bulk, and Ignace always procs here. Unfortunately, it's not enough to survive Falchions. You're still gonna die to Falchions, but at least he's able to tank like literally everything else. I guess he probably survives like armor slaying weapons. No, he probably doesn't survive armor slaying weapons. He won't be able to one-shot an armor slaying weapon, and he'll get doubled by most, so like Tobin could kill him. Tobin attacks him, Tobin doubles him. Feels bad, man. That's the problem with Gremlin. Like, I guess you're trying to like solve his problems, which you can't. It's impossible. Like, he's gonna survive like a blue armor slaying weapon, and there's no falchions that are blue. In fact, you could kill him with Julia and Daedra. If Julia and Daedra received enough attack buffs, probably like a drive attack and a hone attack, they could one-shot as well. If he doesn't have to fight those enemies, then he's really strong. See, the difference between him and like Winter Tharja was the fact that Winter Tharja doesn't have that sort of weakness. Overall, though, I like the build. How should you build G Robin then? No, it's fine. It's a good build. I think it focuses on just retaining his niche as a tank. Like, you can't really solve the issue that his weaknesses provide. I guess you could use like Fallen Shield off of Sheena or something, but it's not that good. Let's look at more edgy. Oh, it's a naked edgy dude. You basically only need to give him like swap his A slot. I mean, don't give him Fury because he doesn't want speed. He can use the other stats, but again, if you make a tanky unit take residual damage, it's not too good. So on the A slot, you kind of want to run stuff that isn't that. You know, you can use like Fortress Defense as budget. You could even run Close Defense. You could run even stuff like Attack 3 if you really wanted to. Like, that's probably fine too. It's like a super budget option if you just recently started playing and such. Other than that, like, you change his C slot to whatever's most flexible with his team comp. So if you're running him with other dragons, War Dragons is fine. It's really good. He doesn't really want to be on the same team as like Myr or Faye in my opinion though, because it's just like too much overlap in the green dragon role. You kind of want to use one or the other. For seals, like distant defense, close defense, again, distant defense, close defense work here, steady stance, steady breath all work. Like, you can run steady breath bold fighter for instance instead of vengeful fighter. You don't really want to combine both though. It's just kind of, it works, but you don't really benefit. Vengeful fighter just becomes a glorified quick riposte if you run steady breath. Oh, we have a actual female Corrin. Res Refine, okay, interesting. I don't know how I feel about a Res Refined female Corrin. I guess it depends on the role you're trying to fit her in. I mean, it's not the worst. Like, Bonfire is still fine, obviously as a special, but I'm guessing this A slot has to be like Fury, right? Or okay, Creepers is waiting for Warding Breath. Yeah, that seems like it would be a good choice, wouldn't it? It seems like you might want to use Iceberg then if she's baiting. So if this is Warding Breath, then yeah, obviously Iceberg is the ideal choice there. But if it's not, then yeah, you kind of stick with Bonfire. But then if I'm looking at it correctly, if that's 35 res and 34 defense, it's actually the same damage between Iceberg and Bonfire. So it's not that great. Yeah, Bonfire is more consistent. I guess just give her a breath and you're good to go. There's another Edgelord. Yeah, this is similar to what we saw earlier. Don't actually proc Aether though. I'm guessing this is for arena points. This is definitely has to be for arena points, yeah? So be careful here. This is not that good. Ignace is definitely better for consistent reasons with Vengeful Fighter. But yeah, Aether special isn't gonna proc, so everything else here is like full arena points. I'm just guessing that's for arena points and Ignace is better. Pico confirms it. Yeah, he says this is an arena build. Okay, cool. Enderstorm says Vengeful Fighter fully charges Aether in one round. For player phase usage, Enderstorm, not for on the combat itself. Ignace would be used on the same combat, which guarantees kills. Aether could miss kills. I mean, like, the fact that you don't use a special could end up in you missing kills. I know 60 attack is a lot, but there are still definitely units that could survive it, especially red ones. Taco Corey says you don't want to proc Aether on the first attack. Well, I mean, you kind of, like, okay, I've had this situation with my Crom plenty of times. I have 62 attack with him, okay, as a red, and he still misses kills. This is more attack than that Grima, by the way. He misses kills with 62 attack. He could even have more with ally support, by the way. And I run Aether on him, and he misses kills. It's just true. If you use Ignace, you're definitely gonna kill, 100%. And that's really important. If you miss kills, then dancers come in, Wings of Mercy, they get dance, you die. Or they reposition out, and that's it. I'm speaking from experience, from a slow user here. Just because your attack is 60 doesn't mean you're gonna secure all kills. You mean my Ignace? Maybe. Oh my god. Okay, let's look at some Noes. Well, somebody call the Twitch cops. Let's look at a real Noe. This probably looks like a build to take on Falchions. I feel like you could, but not Alm. This Noe should be able to probably survive all the other Falchion users, but not Alm. And I guess that's fine as long as you have somebody else that could counter Alm. Alm's not that difficult to handle, so I'm okay with this. Swordbreaker QR is interesting. You kind of have her do both roles there, which is handle like the oppressive red meta, which is like Zelgius and Iroh, while still being able to handle maybe blues through QR. I'm okay with that. Also, you are likely to get Bonfire like every fight. But the problem is here you're likely to get doubled as well, unless it's a sword user. So Bonfire works really well against the sword units, but it doesn't work that well against what isn't the sword units. So like if you're running, if you QR against maybe a blue unit, you're wasting 2 charge special by getting doubled. Swordbreaker cancels out Bold Fighter. Yeah, it does. It just ends up being canceled out, so Zelgia still doubles. Most importantly though, Bold Fighter still gives the special charge. So if you're running against a Zelgius that runs Steady Breath, Bold Fighter, Quick Impulse, it just turn 1 Bold Fighter smash Noe in the face for 1 billion damage. Hey, Res Refine Noe. That's pretty cool. This isn't a great usage of Fury though. Again, she doesn't really want the speed. She has low speed, and this looks like a minus speed one anyways. It does what it needs to do, which is counter plenty of things. With Res Refinement, Quick Riposte, Res, and Bowbreaker, you're kind of countering a lot of things. Like this Noe is basically suited for countering Reinhardt and Bolin, which is pretty awesome, you know? It does that well. A 50 attack Reinhardt here is going to end up doing 32 damage to her. And a Bolin would probably kill her, I think. Like, obviously, if both of them came and attack you in 1 turn, they'd kill you, but that's not the point. Kind of like kill one, pick off the other, and just go from there. Like, imagine a Reinhardt attacking you. Okay, you kill it on enemy phase, then it's player phase, and the Bolin's right behind. You go in and player phase her, because you have enough attack with the adaptive breath to kill. I mean, on top of that, you'd have your Moonbow charged, or you might. If you don't, then Iceberg actually ends up being better, just to have that player phase option. Wow, impressive. I'm definitely impressed. Yeah, the reason that this works is because she doesn't need the speed, so if she's giving speed to other units, that works really intelligently. Steady Breath Aether is obviously pretty staple with Quick Riposte to ensure that Aether proc. Advantage is fine in the B slot. She counterattacks from all ranges, so it works fine. Honestly, I would probably recommend Guard, though, or Swordbreaker, but probably Guard. I'd recommend Guard. If you basically copy my Chrom build, you're gonna make sure that she beats Ira and Mia reliably. Because even if you run this build, like, she still can die to both those units, unfortunately. Black Luna shreds her defenses to such pathetic stat totals, and it's pretty bad. So recommendation is definitely just changing the B slot as necessary to Guard. Like, Vantage is nice for all other scenarios, but Guard is pretty meta defining. Yeah, this is a pretty similar build, but instead of running Steady Breath, you run TA, and that's okay-ish. It just depends on whether your red matches are dealt with by your blue unit on the team. So the blue unit on the team really needs to take care of the red matchups, but because if you're running TA rather than Steady Breath, you're really just, or anything else really, like Forge's Defense, you're hurting her red matchups and making sure she basically dies to all blue matchups by running this. So be very careful here. It takes away the flexibility, but ensures the consistency against green units. For example, TA is pretty good to reduce damage against like Julia or Daedra, but they're not so common in the meta lately. This is obviously really good against like Grima now, who otherwise would target your res stat. So yeah, obviously that's fine. And yeah, there's a lot of green armors, especially with like the new Hector, old Hector, Amelia, Winter Lisa, Winter Chrom. There's all these things happening right now, so using TA is okay. It's just you do hurt a lot of matchups and reduce your consistency against them. Yep, so I'm looking at a Ninian, and Ninian's a pretty interesting dragon. My Ninian is actually minus attack, and I think this is minus attack as well, I'm pretty sure. It looks like minus attack to me, but that's actually fine on dancers. I'm a big promoter of minus attack dancers. I think they really do what they need to do. Like, all they really need to do is support, right? So if you use like fortified dragons or honed dragons, she ideally has honed dragons actually. You would probably want to kill Myrrh for honed dragons and have her be the one supporting the other dragons, because she shouldn't be engaging in combat that often. She's a fine user of Light Breath Plus. If you gave her like Light Breath Plus and Distant Counter, that'd be pretty good. But Lightning Breath is also pretty. It's fine. Like, they're both good choices. And yeah, I do recommend TA3 as the end goal here, because otherwise your damage scaling isn't that good. Plus speed minus attack is pretty good. But yeah, Iceberg is what you want to change your special to. You could also run Moonbow. which is pretty fine. Don't try to make her combat units. I don't support like dancers trying to be like combat units, and the reason for that is they just don't have the combat BST. Like they just don't have the stats to back it out. Female Corrin. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it does what it needs to do. I'm a big fan of female Corrin running like Windsweep, Steady Breath builds. Those are really oppressive. They're really hard to deal with. On enemy phase, fighting her like with Steady Breath and her insanely high speed stat, you end up like getting doubled and such. And then on player phase with Windsweep and Dark Breath, she just like demolishes your team's stats. So yeah, that ends up hurting a lot. This is kind of cool because you're running supportive build, like double spurs. Fury Renewal is fine. I would personally use something like Swordbreaker. Just you know, so it works fine. And I'm a bigger fan of Bonfire than I'm of Ignace, just because it's more consistent special damage. Brett's are target, like I know she needs the special damage, but Bonfire is still more consistent, and you should probably be able to secure some kills here and there, depending on what sort of buffs you have on the team, like Hone attacks or Fortified defenses.